Durban 90.4 and Petermarisburg 105.6 FM every Wednesday from 8 p.m. with YUNUS SACOOR. That's 8 p.m. every Wednesday. Radio Al Ansar, keeping you informed.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to another edition of News in Focus live on Radio Al Ansar International, broadcasting on the frequency Durban 90.4 FM, Petermarisburg 105.6 FM, and streaming on www.alansar.org.za. Ahlan wa sahlan wa marhaba bikum. My name is YUNUS SACOOR. I will be in your company for the next 2 hours. Today the date is the 28th of May 2026, the 3rd of Zulhajj 1447. Before I commence tonight's show, I want to indicate to you that during these blessed days of Zulhajj, the Prophet ﷺ would increase greatly in worship and remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In one of the suggestions he made was that we should revive his sunnah by saying takbir openly and often. The Prophet ﷺ further said that there are no days greater in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, nor days in which righteous deeds are more beloved to him than these 10 days. So increase in them your saying of tahil takbir. We must also say often Allahu Akbar, La ilaha illallah, Allahu Akbar, walillahi alhamd. Sayyid al-Bukhari mentions that Abdullah bin Umar and Abu Huraira would go out to the marketplace during these days making takbir, and the people would follow them in takbir. The Prophet ﷺ taught us that Islam is not only kept inside the masjid. The remembrance of Allah should fill our homes, our journeys and our daily lives. A heart connected to zikr finds peace even in difficult times. Now during this 10 days, it's recommended by Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam that those that can manage to fast should keep the fast, the 9 fast, and the reward is equivalent to 1 year's fasting. In addition, tilawatul Quran, keep up with our salah, and it is reported in the hadith, mafhum of which is that if one performs Isha Salah with Jamaat and get up and perform Fajr with Jamaat, the reward is equivalent to the entire night's ibadat. We know that in the Saudi Arabian Peninsula, people are converging there in millions to perform Hajj. The first day of Hajj will be on Monday in Saudi. People will converge to Mina, and Tuesday will be the day of Arafat, Wednesday the day of Eid, Qurbani. In South Africa, Eid will be next Thursday. So, inshallah, we now increase our ibadat during these 10 days. There's great reward. And Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam mentioned about Qurbani. It is wajib, those that can afford it, to perform the Qurbani on Eid day and distribute the meat to those that need it. Because Nabi alayhi salam mentioned that the best amongst us are those that feed others, those that care for others, and those that have good character. So alhamdulillah, these are days where we have to take advantage, increase our ibadat every day, and whatever we can manage, let's emphasize that these 10 days are absolutely important. On tonight's program, we're going to chat about a report back on the Piemberg urban development in Daba. We interviewed the mayor of Piemberg last week, and he mentioned that they're having this in Daba to improve service delivery, to improve the decay in the Pietermaritzburg area, and we'll unpack some of the outcomes of the Indaba. We're also going to discuss the protests relating to tariff adjustments, and we know today there was a huge march emanating from Curry's Fountain towards the City Hall, where various civic organizations led by ERPM converged to City Hall, whereby there's been consistent protests on the tariff increases, which are double-digit numbers. Most of the civic organizations are contesting that these tariff increases are unaffordable. There are poor people out there. There's a huge degree of unemployment, and how can people afford these increases? People are in areas for large amounts, and they're not in a position to pay. And the city has to be pro-poor. And unfortunately, with these huge tariff increases, whether it's electricity, water, rates, and other tariff adjustments, it's totally unaffordable, and you can't make a bad situation worse. So we'll be discussing the outcome of those protest marches. With me in the studio and my guest for this evening, I'm going to interview Anthony Walthausen, Msunduzi Association of Residents Civics, known as Mark. He will be on telephone with me shortly discussing or unpacking the urban renewal in Daba. Then I've got live in the studio with me Brother Asad Ghaffar, chairman of Etiquette Ratepayers Protest Movement. His organization spearheaded this protest march, and they've also raised serious concerns on service delivery versus the charges we pay for utilities as well as rates. Later on in the program, I will be interviewing our political analyst Samuel Kennedy, and we will obviously have our economist on the show later on in the program to unpack the fluctuations in world financial markets. We know oil is seesawing and the price of crude oil, and as a result of which we know petrol prices are going up every month, and this is all linked to the Iran-US-Israel war, which is basically topsy-turvy, not coming to a conclusion, and Trump, as usual, is up to his tricks. One day he says that we're going to come to a conclusion with this war, and the next day he says we're ready to start re-attacking Iran. So we don't know what game he's playing together with Netanyahu. So they're creating huge fluctuations in world financial markets, and that's affecting everybody, including the poor. So without much ado, I'd like to introduce our guest, Anthony Waldhausen. Anthony, good evening and welcome to News in Focus live on Radio Al Ansar International. We can hear you, Anthony. Can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
You now. Our apologies that you were not so clear. Anthony, I was going through some discussions last week with the Msunduzi mayor, and he mentioned that he's having this indaba with a view to basically dealing with lots of service delivery challenges and infrastructure challenges, and he wanted civil society and other stakeholders to attend the indaba last week. Now, I know that you mentioned, that there were creative, innovative proposals for urban renewal, which they look forward to being part of, or your organization look forward to part of. And you also mentioned that at the conclusion of the Idamba held by the municipality in partnership with Invest PM Berg and supported by KwaZulu-Natal Department of Economic Development, that they are basically trying to map a way forward. And some of the comments you made, I've picked it up from the media releases, is that you suggested that the municipality address political interference, corruption, nepotism, and consequence management. You also mentioned cadre deployment of inexperienced, unqualified staff and the enforcement bylaws to ensure safety and security. Now, I just want to unpack with you some of the issues you raised, because these are topical issues and it's going on for years. So, was there any commitment by the leadership of Msunduzi that they're going to deal seriously with the concerns that were raised?
Well, actually, they never actually addressed any of those issues when, because I actually made those comments after the actual Indaba, because in order for us to attract investors, we need to ensure that those, what you've read out, are actually addressed: the corruption, the having competent people that can actually run these projects, because they actually presented good, great initiatives and plans and projects as part of the urban renewal initiatives, but you cannot actually implement anything until if you don't address those topics, those areas of concern, because we're finding at the moment there's a large, for example, the corruption issue is getting out of hand at the moment. And the thing is that if you don't deal with that, how do you expect to attract investors to come into Pietermaritzburg? At the moment, CBD is completely collapsed and has deteriorated to such an extent that a large amount of actual businesses are actually moving out of the CBD. It's going to become a ghost town. And if you go down to the downtown of the Pietermaritzburg CBD, it's completely chaotic. There's no forms of law and order down there, and people can do as they please there. But it's also affecting the businesses there. So overall, what is actually needed is actually we need visionary and a visionary leadership, which we don't have at the moment.
Actually, my recollection, whether it's eThekwini or whether it's PMburg CBD, those areas are the heart of any municipality, because obviously there's business activity taking place, there's flats there, there's businesses, there's office parks, particularly in the Church Street, Long Market Street, at the top end of where City Hall is located, Commercial Road, Berg Street and the like. My understanding of PM Berg, and that's the heart of the city. And your rates base is predominantly, derived from those properties. Now, you mentioned that the CBD is collapsing and business are moving out. Now, is that affecting the valuation of those buildings and those businesses in that vicinity, or are the valuations static, they're same, or they're increasing and people are paying extra rates, but there's no improvement in service delivery? Maybe this I thought we'll unpack, because one of the things we're leading to now is how do we address urban decay, which is the subject of the Indaba, and how do we deal with infrastructure decay and challenges. So the first part I want to raise with you is the CBD is collapsing, people are moving out. Is the valuations increasing there, and is the rates base still quite high for those owners of those properties?
I doubt it, because the challenge is that the crime and grime in those that affecting those buildings are, and also you have abandoned buildings as well too, and those are not attracting any businesses to come into the CBD. So what we're finding is that recently the municipality has done a valuation of all properties, residence and business properties, and we found that they actually increased these valuations of properties, and this is where you found large amount of residents and businesses that actually objected and appealed the valuation of properties because they were exorbitantly high. But according to the area that people are, these buildings or properties are based, the immediate surroundings and environment is not conducive to actually justify these high increases. So I think you'll find that some of these properties have devalued down because the circumstances that these buildings are subject to is actually causing them to actually not be should be what they should be, that the high valuation of properties. So it's extremely challenging for businesses and residents in the CBD to actually maintain their properties while at the same time the poor service delivery. When you walking in the CBD, there's a lot of leakages and the poor workmanship of the municipality when they're digging up the sidewalks to actually repair water leaks, type of thing, and burst pipes. It's actually completely degenerated. They're not even doing a good job in repairing and maintaining those for example, the work that they're doing. So it's for us. The mood at the moment is very despondent by the business and residents in those areas, in the CBD.
We are aware that, there are sort of businesses that are owned historically by people, whether it's white, Indian, colored, or maybe African, more so those communities, Indian and white in the city area. We know that the condition of the roads are problematic. They haven't been maintained. There's a lot of potholes. The stormwater is a problem. And as you said, when there are repairs taking place, then, the roads are not adequately retarred and repaired. But having said that, I mentioned that, the urban or the CBD is the heart of the city. And where business is, that's where there should be the highest rate space. And that's where a revitalization program needs to take place. For example, in the Cape Town city, if you go to Cape Town city, the municipality was involved in revitalizing the city, which then increased valuations, increased the rate space, and people will want to buy property and trade in the area. Now, did the mayor indicate, I didn't have a chance to ask him the question last time, other than him saying we want to renew or deal with urban decay, was there any indications in the Indaba that they or the basis in which they plan to revitalize or deal with urban decay?
Well, they actually did some presentations of possible potential projects in the most of the CBD area. But for us, we find it very challenging in respect that these are just pie in the sky sort of proposals. I mean, the actual presentations of these projects, I mean, they look great and amazing projects potential. But as I mentioned, we're not going to be addressing all the issues that we've actually made reference to. It's going to just be, it won't actually happen. It's just going to be an opportunity missed. So for us, what we actually looking at is that when we're looking at the CBD itself, what we actually calling for is that the actual mayor and the powers that be need to actually engage with all stakeholders. We need a forum that will not be a talk shop, but actually be a forum whereby all stakeholders are part of the process of actually wanting to renew the CBD and surrounding areas. And there's a lot of potential. We have a business organization called MIDA, which is Umsunduzi Economic Development Agency. They have come up with quite a number of potential projects to revitalize the actual CBD, and they've not been entertained by the mayor and others. So what we find and what is actually needed is you need to have a comprehensive plan, but an action plan to actually deal with the CBD and revitalization of the CBD, but you need all stakeholders to be part of that. So that's business, the residents, and other informal and formal businesses, as well as residents to be part of that process, and also the municipality and other government departments. Because there's a lot of opportunities from other government departments like provincial departments that can inject some funding into the municipality. But the challenge we have here is that money that's going to be injected into the municipality we know that it's all going to be ended up into corruption.
The mayor of Msindi municipality said their mission is not only to attract investors but to build confidence to show that the city is ready for business. What concerns me is, as you said, there are problems and there must be a plan to deal with the revitalization of the city or deal with urban decay. And you also alluded to the fact, and the mayor, is that they need stakeholders like the private sector to come in and assist. Now, when the private sector, for example, the businesses in the urban area or the central area, they got these buildings and they want to get involved in, number one, they have to basically refurbish their buildings, like what happened in Western Cape and other areas, to make it look decent. So they need capital injection on their side. But obviously they want crime and other problems that are associated with the decay of the city to be dealt with by the city. And the city is saying they don't have funding. And they want the private sector businesses to come in. Now they've got this investment company to address these issues, to attract the private sector funding. Now, no private sector funding will come in until they know how their funding is going to be utilized and what benefit they're going to get out of pumping in funding. For example, if you want to deal with resurfacing the roads in the main roads in the central area, and if the municipality does not have funding to refurbish those roads and deal with stormwater and other challenges, then the private sector, if they're going to pump in funding, they want some kind of incentive, either to the funding to be repaid, or perhaps a rates rebate. Has there been any discussions along those lines, or they're referring all that to a task team to deal with all those issues, which can take another year or 2 or 3 years to implement?
Yeah, that is the issue there, that we're not having, for example, the enforcement of bylaws. And there's no sort of issue, there's no actual plans around addressing the crime and grime in the CBD. So that, for one, is pushing away the investors into the CBD. as well as the management of finances that are coming into this. If they get any injection of any funding, even as from the provinces or from national treasury. But the challenge is managing those funds. Just recently in the witness paper this today, we had there's a challenge with the Northdale Hospital where they actually paid 17 million rand to the municipality for the services, the electricity account, but they couldn't find the municipality is actually after the municipality revealed that the payments do not appear on the billing system, but the actual Northdale Hospital disputes that because they actually paid that money to the municipality, but now they have to now set up a forensic investigation to find out where is that 70 million rand. So that is just the one case where the misappropriation or mismanagement of funds that are coming into the
municipality.
So this is the frustration we have as residents, and I probably can speak on behalf of the businesses as well too, where there's actually potential. There's a lot of potential in our municipality, but the challenge is you're not actually having the good leadership of the politicians that do not have the political will to address all these issues and not being proactive. So this is very frustrating for us as the residents.
The mayor mentioned the success of the city will not be measured by what they promised today, but by what they deliver tomorrow. Now, this is a serious statement. He's committing to say, judge us by what we're going to plan to deliver. But Jimmy Naidu, the chairperson of Northern Area Ratepayers and Residents Association, one of your compatriots, said residents are tired of grand announcement and Indaba talk shops with little implementation thereafter. Now, that is a very important statement relative to what you said, that municipality must address political interference, nepotism, corruption, consequence management, cadre deployment, inexperienced, unqualified staff, and that has been subject of our discussions in various programs in the last year and a half or two. From your point, Mark's point of view, your ratepayer associations, do you believe that this workshop will result in changes as soon as possible, or it's another talk shop and you'll have to wait and see what happens? Is there any positive sentiment that came out of the Indaba?
Well, there were actually quite a number of resolutions. I think it was about over 30 or so resolutions that came out of those. But there was no sort of task team because there was suggestion from the speakers from the panel to set up a task team to actually monitor the implementation of all these resolutions. So we don't have a report from that Indaba, so nothing has been so we can able to monitor because they just spoke through quite a few number of those resolutions, but not in detail. So we want to know what the detail is of all these resolutions, how it's going to be implemented. Is there a task team going to be put together, and who are the stakeholders are going to be involved? So this is where we find ourselves quite challenging at the moment, where there's no actual action plan thereafter. So everything is in the sky at the moment, and we don't know what's happening. And the challenge is that you have this Indaba, and then you're having 5 months down the line to have a local government elections, and we don't know if the same people are going to be back into power on the 5th of November. Because there's going to be quite a lot. We anticipate quite a large amount of councillors going to be unemployed on the 5th of November. So are they able to implement these actual resolutions now? But unfortunately, we're very skeptical about it.
To refer to Jimmy Naidu's further comment from Nara, he's saying that every election cycle, communities are presented with ambitious plans and promises, much like the tram train proposal that was heavily publicized years ago, yet more than a decade later, nothing tangible has materialized. He further added that the municipality should prioritize addressing basic issues within its control before making further promises of regeneration and renewal. He said that Nara has lost confidence in the municipality's ability to deliver on commitments. Now, later on, we're going to unpack some eThekwini issues, which is similar in line to what you guys are facing. In the light of what people are saying, do you believe that there's any manner in which we can force the municipality to start addressing service delivery challenges and thereafter deal with the basically intentions of the Indaba?
The thing is, we don't have any confidence in the leadership. They're not actually, as I mentioned, there's no visionary leadership we have at the municipality ready to pick up and roll up the sleeves and actually do something. It's all just talk, and no action. So we're very skeptical about anything moving forward, about any plans or renewal of our city. And it's just the politics that's actually the challenge we have is, it's, I think in all municipalities, are the actual the politics of local government, which should actually be, I mean, we found, like, for example, the framework of the professionalization of public service. They've mentioned that, and also the white paper on local government, is that the local government is too politicized. And if we take that politics out of the local government, I believe that we will actually see much more things happening, because the politics are actually the stumbling blocks in our municipalities.
Whether the politics will change, the years gone by, it hasn't. And as soon as you get a new set of politicians, then they got their own ideologies. And until and unless you don't change the caliber of employees that are working there and the political will to change, we're going to have major problems. But Anthony, we can talk the whole night, but we need action. So I have indicated to the mayor of Pietermaritzburg, we'd like to engage and pin him down and find out exactly how serious he is to improve service delivery for our residents of Pietermaritzburg. And all we can do and pray and hope that they begin to realize the seriousness of the positions they hold in the municipality and why they should be using the money to provide services for the people. Anthony, I thank you, man. We'll discuss this further. I've got many other guests to interview tonight, but thank you for sharing your thoughts with us and being proactive in the area of Piemberg and keeping the municipality on their toes. And I'm sure we will get some kind of improvement in service delivery if we put pressure on the municipality. Yeah. Anthony, and thank you for joining us this evening, and all the best for your future endeavors.
Thank you.
Mr. Anthony Walthausen, Msunduzi Association of Residents Civics, Mark, they are quite pessimistic that the municipality will not deliver, and they don't have the ability to deliver, but we have to hope for the best. With me, I have live in the studio Brother Asad Ghaffar, chairman of eThekwini Ratepayers Protest Movement. Before I ask Asad his take on what's happening in Piemberg, he's got a lot of issues in eThekwini that he's addressing, or his organization ERPM is addressing. And today they had a protest march from Curry's Fountain with various political organizations, civil society joining them. Asad, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to News in Focus.
Jazakallah for having me.
Asad, I want you to just apprise our listeners throughout the country that you've been calling for this protest march because you want to notify, after a series of engagements with the mayor and departmental officials, about service delivery challenges and more so the tariff increases, which are double-digit numbers. And you've obviously formulated a budget to indicate that have a nil increase, that's your proposal, but the budget you have, you'll be able to manage your expenditure. Perhaps you just want to give us an indication, how did that protest march go? And before that, why was there need for a protest march? And exactly what was the details of your memorandum handed to the mayor's office?
Yeah, look, every year the municipality puts forward a budget in terms of the financial year. We've been pushing back on this budgets every year based on the tariffs that the municipality puts forward in terms of what ratepayers needs to pay. They don't do a needs analysis. They do not take any of the critical issues, so CPI, all of those indices as well. They just thumbsuck a number and say, you know what, tough luck, ratepayers, you all need to pay. So this year, we, at the beginning of the year, we put a request through to the municipality to say, we want to assist you in drafting of this budget because it seems as though you guys don't know what you're doing. So we want a seat at the table. We will assist you. We have the capacity. We have the individuals who are able to put forward a budget and assist you with this. The municipality, in terms of the legislation, should have allowed us, but obviously we know that they didn't want us because if we close the doors and all of the opportunities that they have for their tenderpreneurs and for looting and for corruption, it's not going to benefit them. So they obviously didn't accept this. When the municipality then announced what the tariffs would be, immediately we as ERPM were the first to reject the double-digit tariff increase. And we also then looked at this budget that was presented for public comment. We scrutinized it and we found that much of the information required to give input on this budget was missing. So we asked the question, we're saying, firstly, councillors are going to take a decision on this budget. EXCO is going to take a decision on this budget, and obviously EXCO has taken a decision because they put it out for public comment. How did they peruse this document? How did they put it out for public comment when it is an incomplete document? And as you well know, in a Tekwini, the major parties that sit in EXCO are the ANC, the DA, EFF, and the IFP. So we're saying, hold on, how did this pass EXCO? What did EXCO read? Or did they just say, okay, fine, let's put it through to full council? Anyway, that happened. We then rejected this budget and we called out immediately that this draft budget that's been put out for public comment is incomplete. And we reject it. As soon as we did that, the DA then came out and said, publicly, we reject this budget. Now we know that the DA, they have a tendency of doing this, that they'll make comments knowing full well that, a process like this is not going to pass because it'll go to council and they'll get outvoted. Then they will go back to their constituents and say, oh, well, we tried and we got outvoted. So we took them up and said, if you're serious about rejecting this budget, then why don't you get all the other parties around the table, get their view, get their opinion, and get them to support you. If you get them to support you in terms of rejecting this budget, then the only opposition you'll have is the ANC. And in terms of the numbers, you'll hold the majority. At first they said, no, that's impossible, blah, 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 blah. We kept pushing them until there was a vote for vehicles. And guess what? In the history of Etekwini, the ANC actually lost that vote. So we were then, our members then came up to us and said, hold on, if the DA doesn't want to call a multi-party discussion in terms of the budget, ERPM, you take the lead, you call the multi-party discussion. So that's what we did. We called all the parties, we sent invites to every single party and we said, guys, come, let's sit down, let's have a talk about the budget, let's have a talk about the impact of the double-digit tariffs. Every other party came except the DA and the ANC. And now we were confused. We're saying, but hold on. The DA is saying that they're rejecting this. How come they're not coming? But be that as it may, we continued with the multi-party discussion. The ANC was very upset. They said that we didn't invite them. But then we proved to them that an invite was sent. So then they started to have some discussions with us post that meeting. But we then went ahead and in terms of the discussion, and out of that discussion, it was born that, we should hold a protest march. But not just ERPM. We want to be part of this process. And because, remember that it's the councillors who vote on the budget. People need to understand that. It's not ratepayers associations that take the decisions. It's the councillors that are elected in council and they are political parties. So they said, we support what you are saying. We've looked at what proposals you have put on the table. We understand what you are calling for and we support that. So this is not a political, campaign or whatever. It's a call against an injustice. And as the parties, we endorse what you're saying because you're making sense in terms of your proposals. we will support you 100%. You call the date, we will put boots on the ground and we will stand behind you. So we said fine, and then as a result of that, today is what you saw. We marched from Curry's Fountain all the way to City Hall, and we handed over a memorandum to an official on behalf of the mayor. Obviously the mayor wasn't around. He did advise us yesterday that he would be in Cape Town. He got summoned to Mscopa to go and answer for all those allegations that have been put against the eThekwini municipality. And it's about time that they start to answer for all of those things, because, enough is enough. We can't continue allowing this looting and corruption to continue. And as an organization, we've been putting pressure on the city, and we will continue to put pressure. And we'll see. This next week, they will definitely announce what they want to, put forward in terms of those tariff increases. And again, if it's we're calling for a zero tariff increase, and we're not just calling for it. We submitted a proposal to say it is possible. We're not just saying that we don't want an increase. We're showing you that even with a 0% tariff increase, and if you manage your finances better and you put strict measures in terms of your expenses, it is possible. And the alternative that we presented actually has a better saving than theirs. So, it just doesn't make sense.
Now, later on in the program, we'll have our economist and financial guru here. What were some of the issues you picked up in the budget that required adjustment to balance the budget and to obviate a tariff increase? Because what the municipality is arguing to our residents is that this increase has been imposed on the municipality by NERSA as well as Amgeni Water in terms of electricity and water adjustments. And then the offshoot of that is the, sewer and other adjustments, refuse removal, etc. So when you all did an analysis of the budget, what did you pick up as being extraordinary expenditure that needed adjustment or reduction to balance the budget without a tariff increase?
Look, Brother Yunus, when they budget, they're budgeting the losses as well. So they're not just budgeting income, they're budgeting losses. And what they're doing is, if you look at the water as an example, it's between 58 to 60%. So in the tariff, they're budgeting a 58 to 60% water loss. So in essence, if they're buying water for 1 rand, they're charging us 3 rand. So they already built that into the tariff. So what we are then saying, and this formed part of the discussion that we had with the mayor yesterday morning, because the proposal that we put on the table is talking about a 3% saving on the non-revenue water. So basically water that's going down the drain. A 3% will bring in billions of rands into the budget. And when that comes into the budget, obviously then there's no need for a tariff increase. We also know that there's 44 billion rand outstanding in terms of bad debt. 44 billion rand on a 74 billion rand budget. Now, your economist will tell you something's not right. You're going to put your tariffs up, more people will stop paying. Your 44 billion will soon become 50 billion. So you can put the tariff as high as you want and people will just stop paying. You need to get the system moving. Now, when we talk about non-revenue water, and you had one guest from another political party very recently, and he was supporting this idea of the mayor as well, where they're trying to say, no, but non-revenue water refers to water that we give to indigent because of a human rights issue, and we accept that. We're saying, no, it's cool, it's fine. We got no issue with that. But when we look at the reports, and I told the mayor this yesterday, we are looking at your reports. Now understand, as a ratepayers association, you don't always have access to the reports because it's in the municipality. You need someone in the municipality to help you or to give you that information in order for you to extract it. If you don't have that individual, you don't know. You're thumb sucking, you're guessing. You worked in the municipality, you know how the system works. But we're now in an age of artificial intelligence. So as soon as you put a report, whether you put it to Treasury or whether you send it to province, AI can see it. So we have access to those reports now. We can see those reports. And I told the mayor, from the reports that you submitted, your actual losses are between 40 to 45%. Do what you want, say what you want. That's a fact. He said, no, but it's in those reports may not be accurate. I said, let's not debate this. Because when you drive around the city and you listen to the communities, they'll tell you there's no water. They'll tell you that there's burst pipes. You can see the burst, you can see the leaks in the street. So when you come and you tell us, and also when there's a major burst, we know for a fact it's taking maybe 2 days or 3 days. How many millions of liters of water is going down the drain? And this is where we're saying you're not taking it seriously. And because you're not taking it seriously, you're asking us to pay. And we're saying we're not prepared to pay. Fix the system, fix your corruption, because again, he was at an event in Hillcrest, he was invited, and I was invited to that event as well. And he says, no, I've started the process of consequence management. And we've already dismissed more than 15 people. He made the comment in public. And he was challenged. The community asked him, tell us who those individuals are, name and shame. It's easy for you to say, no, you've dismissed 15 individuals. Who are those individuals? What positions did they hold in the municipality? What influence did they have? Because we are calling for that as well. You can't be asking ratepayers to fund a system of corruption. We call it the leaking bucket. The more we put into the municipality, the more you're going to take out. So fix that, because that's what our budget is talking about. Make a firm commitment to increase on your revenue collection. Number 2, close the door on corruption. And number 3, fix non-revenue water. These are 3 basic, simple issues that if it's done properly, there's no need. And we're not saying forever no tariff increase. We're saying first let's fix the system. Let's stabilize this, because right now, where we're sitting at the moment, many people can't afford the municipal bill as it stands. Imagine adding another 3% or 5% on top of it. When you're struggling, petrol price has gone up. You're struggling, your food pricing is gone up. Now, what you're paying right now, and even if you say, okay, Brother Yunus, pay an additional 5%. That 5% on your bill is an extra 800, 900 rand that has to come out from somewhere. Where is it going to come out from? Right now, you can't find the 200 rand. Where are we going to find the 800 rand? And this is what we're fighting about. So many people can't afford their bills. The city is not accepting it. I mean, they're spending money on music festivals. It's not a core function of the municipality. We got other bigger issues that we need to fix. Focus on that, because again, this is what our budget is talking about. Putting the right equipment in the depots, because you'll be paying for staff that sit in a depot the whole day because there's no space. But we're paying for this individual. Then we're paying high, amounts to outsource labor. I mean, the plumbers now are complaining. They don't want to work because they haven't been paid. And these plumbers work on demand. The mayor is saying, no, but we save money. We said, how do you save money? No, we only use them when we need them, and they only work for 15 days. So you have plumbers that work for 15 days in a month, one set, and the remainder 15 days you have another set. So in effect, you got plumbers for 30 days, outsourced plumbers. Why don't you train in-house? He's saying, no, but if we bring them in-house, the cost to company will go up. He's not realizing that when you're using these outsourced contractors, they are damaging the infrastructure and still bleeding the system. So it's costing us more than rather having an in-house plumber.
I think you raise a lot of critical issues, Asad, and we'll take a break for the news and we'll unpack that after the news, because there's lots of other issues of discussion we need to take into account from the memorandum you had it. So let's take a news break, and inshallah we'll continue after the news break.
An informative Islamic global perspective. This is Al Ansar News.
Making news this on the 20th of May, the news from Durban 90.4 FM, Peter Maritzburg 105.6 FM. KwaZulu-Natal authorities engage foreign nationals amid Durban CBD safety concerns. America Monina. KwaZulu-Natal police leadership and some officials from the Home Affairs and the head of asylum seeker management in the province have met with representatives of foreign nationals who attempted to camp outside Durban Central Police Station this week. The group of immigrants say they want protection as they fear for their safety amid ongoing civic action linked to a broader campaign targeting illegal immigration. They have since gathered at the Diaconia Center in the Durban CBD seeking refuge. Reports indicate that the group spent last night at the center after clashes with the law enforcement, with some reportedly sleeping on the verandas as the facility did not formally open its doors to them. Gift of the Givers arrived at the center a short while ago, saying they are assessing the situation so as to determine what assistance is required. In a statement, KwaZulu-Natal Police says that the acting Provincial Commissioner Pumlele Makoba and the senior stakeholders met with leaders of the Congolese Solidarity Campaign at Umgeni Road, Home Affairs offices in Durban. Meanwhile, local media says the March and March group were in the city of Gukampo in the Eastern Cape earlier today. Reports says they accosted a foreign national and demanded why he's in the country.
Yes.
Okay. So, do you have papers to be here in South Africa?
Yes, I have my ID.
You have your ID?
Yes.
No. How did you get the ID?
I got my ID from Home Affairs.
Man guys. Sir, where did you get the ID? When was it?
Since 2005.
It was 2005. You came to South Africa to do what?
I came to...
What is the main reason for you to come to South Africa?
I came to South Africa because there was a war in South Africa, in Nigeria.
No. You came as a refugee. So what are you doing now for living in South Africa?
Sorry?
What are you doing now for living here in South Africa?
I'm employing the South Africa.
What are you doing? Are you the one who's running the kawash?
Yes, I'm the one.
No, look, sir. Just to be gentle, because I'm an old man, we are here to tell you, according to Immigration Act 2002, Section 13, 15, and 19, you are not allowed to operate any kind of business.
More news now. Emergency services have been attending to a series of accidents across Durban and surrounding areas. Paramedics say they responded to multiple incidents during today's peak period, including a scholar transport accident in Kwandengezi, west of Durban. It's understood the minibus overturned on Old Richmond Road. A short while later, paramedics attended to a collision on Playfair Road in Durban Central, where 3 people sustained injuries. Reported they were transported to hospital. And finally, international story. Italy has deployed 2 minesweepers to the Strait of Hormuz as part of the international mission involving several European countries. The announcement came from the Italian Defense Minister Guido Crosetto earlier today when he said 2 minesweepers left Sicily as part of an international mission that also includes Britain, France, Belgium and the Netherlands. The Minister Crosetto has pointed out that the 2 minesweepers would only be deployed in case of a lasting truce in the region. Italy's opposition parties, however, have been critical of the government's move, stressing that the decision to deploy 2 Italian minesweepers in the proximity of the Strait of Hormuz came too early, considering that an agreement between Iran and the US to end the war seems to be far from being reached. Your weather tonight, it's 18 degrees. A quick reminder of our top story. KwaZulu-Natal police leadership, officials from the Home Affairs and the head of asylum seeker management in the province have met with representatives of foreign nationals who attempted to camp outside Durban Central Police Station this week. This comes as immigrants say they are seeking protection following fear and concern for their lives. That's the news.
At Amina's Wonder Spice, we know that many of you already enjoy the pleasure of cooking with our 100% pure ginger and garlic. Our unique masala paste have created a new dimension and variety to your dishes. For all these reasons and more, we've called it a Wonder Spice. Amina's Wonder Spice, creating a unique taste in a paste. Available throughout South Africa, neighboring countries and also in the UK. Contact us on 031 577 5023 or www.aminaspice.co.za.
When you give your Qurbani to the Al-Imdad Foundation, we don't just take it, we carry it. From slaughter in India to canning in Egypt, through shipping, through borders, through every checkpoint between here and Gaza. We carry your amana until it reaches the hands it was meant for. One share at 3,450 Rand becomes meals for families who've been waiting too long. Make your qurbani with someone who carries it through. Donate online at www.alimdad.com or call 0861 786 243 for more information.
Welcome to Simplex Radio. Visit our showroom for the full range of car audio. Our TV department carries top brands with quality LED panels, full HD to Ultra HD, and now the experience of Super Ultra HD. Visit our theatre rooms and transform your home with brands like Onkyo, Integra, Denon, Boston Acoustics, Yamaha and more for quality audio visual experience. Now available full range of home appliances. A one-stop shopping experience. Call 031 306 4029 or Kenilworth Park, 202 Brickfield Road, Overport. Simplex Radio, the name you can trust.
Get ready to elevate your fitness game at First Fitness in Durban's Berea. With a spacious free weight area, award-winning equipment and exclusive ladies-only parking and training level, we've got everything you need to crush your goals. Hit the ground running on our outdoor track or unleash your inner warrior in our MMA and boxing dungeon. Plus, enjoy high security and ample parking. And don't forget to refuel at our Halal Coffee and Health restaurant for the best in coffees, smoothies and healthy eats. Join us today and redefine your fitness journey. First Fitness, dare to be extraordinary.
This segment is brought to you by Kenfield Auto, your RMI approved service and repair specialist. 236 Brickfield Road, Overport. Kenfield Auto.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Rabbana amanna faktubna ma'a ash-shahidin.
Car won't start?
Kenfield Auto.
Noisy brakes?
Kenfield Auto.
Due for a service?
Kenfield Auto. Kenfield Auto, the answer to all your car problems. Your service and repair specialist for your VW, Audi, Suzuki, Toyota, or just about any vehicle. Kenfield Auto, your RMI and insurance approved workshop. Follow the red and white board in the passage at 236 Brickfield Road, Overport. Call Shafi on 031 207 2399. Kenfield Auto.
The views and opinions expressed by the guest and presenters of Radio Al Ansar are not necessarily the views and opinions of Radio Al Ansar and the Al Ansar Foundation.
नबी आपको मैंने देखा नहीं है, नबी आपको मैंने देखा नहीं है, देखा नहीं है. सल्ले अला
ये बात सच है, हकीकत यही है, नबी आपको मैंने देखा नहीं है. न दौरे मोहम्मद में पैदा हुआ मैं, न साथी सफर का कभी बन सका मैं, न आका की आवाज तक सुन सका मैं, न गज़वात में मुशरिकों से लड़ा मैं, न हिजरत की लज़्ज़त हुई मुझको हासिल, न हो पाया अंसार की सफ में शामिल. नबी आप जिस दम थे गारे हिरा में, कोई ज़ादे रावी न पहुंचा सका मैं. नबी आप जिस दम थे सोरो हिरा में, कोई ज़ादे रावी न पहुंचा सका मैं. मगर सच है ये भी कसम है खुदा की, मोहब्बत मुझे आपसे है नबी जी. सल्ले अला सय्यिदिना सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम. सल्ले अला सय्यिदिना सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि आपके घर से दर से मोहब्बत, सफर से मोहब्बत, हजर से मोहब्बत, मुझे आपके हर पहर से मोहब्बत, हर एक रास्ते राह गुजर से मोहब्बत, वो ईमाए शक्कुल कमर से मोहब्बत, रकन से दहन से नजर से मोहब्बत, नबूवत की जिसने गवाही दिया का, हाँ उस कोह से उस हजर से मोहब्बत, ये बेढंग सी मेरी मोहब्बत का तोहफा, क्या उसकी इजाबत का है कोई रास्ता, क्या उसकी इजाबत का है कोई रास्ता। सल्ले अला सय्यिदिना सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम, सल्ले अला सय्यिदिना सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम। नबू बकर सा में रफीके सफर हूँ, न उस्मान व हैदर हूँ, ना मैं उमर हूँ, न तल्हा न हमजा सईद व साद हूँ, अनस जैसा खादिम न खालिद असद हूँ, न मैं इब्ने औफ व जुबैर व उबैदा, न मैं बूदू जाना मादो कतादा, न अरकम न अखनस बिलाल और यहिया, न मिथले यसार और यासिर न याला, मैं इन सब के कदमों के ज़र्रों का ज़र्रा, मगर ए नबी आपका हूँ मैं शैदा, मगर ए नबी आपका हूँ मैं शैदा।
Listen to News in Focus on Radio Al Ansar, Durban 90.4 and Petermarisburg 105.6 FM every Wednesday from 8 p.m. with YUNUS SACOOR. That's 8 p.m. every Wednesday, Radio Al Ansar, keeping you informed.
Allah, 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 Allah,
इम्तिहान लाखों तने हैं सामने, बैठा हूँ मैं मायूस कुन, आए ना कोई मुझे थामने। अल्लाह अल्लाह तू मेरी सुन ले सदा, हस्बुनल्लाह व निअमल वकील, हस्बुनल्लाह व निअमल वकील, हस्बुनल्लाह व निअमल वकील, निअमल मौला व निअमल नसीर, हस्बुनल्लाह व निअमल वकील, हस्बुनल्लाह व निअमल वकील, हस्बुनल्लाह व निअमल वकील, निअमल मौला व निअमल नसीर, हस्बुनल्लाह व निअमल वकील, निअमल मौला व निअमल नसीर। मायूब हूँ तेरा करम पर्दा रखा, इज्जत भी दी बढ़ के दिया औकात से।
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to News in Focus live on Radio Al Ansar International, broadcasting the frequency Durban 90.4 FM, Petermarisburg 105.6 FM, and broadcasting on www.alansar.org.za. Before the news break, we were chatting to Asad Ghaffar, where he gave us a rundown on the protest march, the rationale for the protest march, and he indicated clearly that there are certain issues in the budget, if dealt with appropriately, there would be no need for tariff increases, particularly on the water losses that is being borne by the consumer and the ratepayer. Now, Asad, I just want to bring you back for discussion, because you mentioned that the budget process, the mayor went to the various wards and he asked for input. And a lot of these civic associations, ratepayer associations, are mentioning, it's an academic exercise, because in terms of the Municipal Structures Act, you've got to go through the consultation process, and they're not taking it seriously. And you further mentioned a lot of these councillors don't even understand how the budget works, and they're not analysing it. And the fact that lots of civic organisations are becoming wise, and they're picking up the budget preparations and the details thereof in the various websites. And once they're analysed, the questions are raised with the CFO. And very often most municipalities take the previous year's budget and they adjust it by a certain percentage. And in terms of electricity and water tariffs, as we discussed, they take the increases by NERSA, Angeni Water and the other people, and they just impose it on the consumers. Further, you mentioned that consumers are finding it extremely difficult to pay the existing tariffs for electricity and water, and any adjustments thereof will create more hardship, resulting in non-payment. And to start off with, there's challenges relating to the billing situation. Number one, the bills are not accurate. A lot of people are getting bills with exorbitant amounts, and many of them indicated that there's incorrect readings, number one. Number two, the meters haven't been read for a good couple of years, and suddenly estimated charges are put in, and when the actual reading takes place, people are imposed with exorbitant costs and they can't afford to pay. And when they had this write-off, the officials themselves don't know how to implement the write-off. So having said that, our previous guest, Anthony Hallhausen, mentioned that when Pietermaritzburg had the Indaba, the key concerns were not addressed. That is, the bloated bureaucracy, and our economist, he'll chat about that later, speaks about most government departments and municipalities have at least 1/3 bloated human resources, which means that their cadre deployment staff are put in there because they're unemployed in the various wards, and politicians want their support during election time, and then just push them to the municipalities to a point, and that becomes a bloated municipality, and that expenditure the consumer and the ratepayer has to bear. So from your discussions with the various organizations, the organizations are unanimous that the city must start looking at restructuring its cost centers. Asad?
100%. So not only does it need to adjust the cost centers, we also need to look at those individuals who are holding key positions. And as ratepayers, within the city, we should be demanding that we have the right individuals to do that job. National Treasury in itself is now calling out a situation where many of these municipalities are bringing in consultants. So why are they bringing in consultants? Because the person that you appointed doesn't know how to do his job. And because he doesn't know how to do his job, we must bring a consultant.
At an exorbitant cost.
It's not making sense. So if this guy...
So you're shielding your internal employees because they're politically appointed.
100%. And now Parliament has taken a decision to say that, and in fact the courts have taken a decision to say cadre deployments need to come to an end. So going forward, we're not going to have this situation. But right now we are stuck in a point in time where these individuals are holding those positions. Now, if you look at what's happening in KZN, I mean, we were just talking offline, and in particular in Tekwini, it's very unlikely that the ANC are going to retain their power in Tekwini. It's more than likely going to go to MK Party. Now, when you speak to MK Party and you say, okay, fine, politically you're going to take over Tekwini, administratively you won't have control because it's still an ANC person.
And what was their reaction?
And it made them realize that. I mean, they never foresaw that.
Well, listen, let's unbundle that. I spoke about restructuring, and I'm talking from a degree of understanding how municipalities work. Bloated bureaucracy, difficulty in getting rid because the unions are politicized, SAMU, IMATU, and all these organizations, and they're not going to allow restructuring. They're not going to allow employees to be dismissed. Even consequential management they are opposing, and sometimes it takes 2 to 3 years to really deal with employees. So if the mayor says if he dismissed 15 employees, it could be maybe general workers that were not delivering, and the unions accepted. Now, you mentioned the ANC is losing power, and they're arguing it may not be the case. We may have a coalition. They're saying they're reorganizing themselves politically. The independents are saying they are now going to start increasing in number. MK is saying provincially they won. That is a day for another debate. But having understood how the provincial elections went, and if that is the case, MK is saying it's something to think about. The MK is a runaway from the ANC in any event. And many of the critics are saying that these fellows were found wanting with the ANC, and to avoid being, taken to task for all the corrupt activities that they switched to MK. A lot of MK now gone to other parties because Zuma is firing and hiring people all the time. So whoever controls, how are they going to restructure the city to deal with this bloated bureaucracy? Because that is an area of concern. Now, if the CFO, is an official, and as you mentioned, he's preparing the budget, is he taking political direction in preparing the budget, or does he go to the politicians and say, listen, this must be a pro-poor budget, we can't allow tariff increases, but these are the cuts, and I'm sure the politicians will listen to him. Or unless he's just being lazy with his team and just upping the budget to getting office back into council.
Most definitely it's not a pro-poor budget. I mean, it's impossible. And I'll tell you this much as well. When they look at the budget and they look at the tariff increases, they assume that it's people who can afford these double-digit tariff increases. They don't realize that a lot of individuals who've come into the system over the years are not just whites, Indians and Khaleds. There are some black individuals who have come through. The mayor was invited to a meeting in Hillcrest. And when we say Hillcrest, you would assume that, majority of the people in that meeting would then be white. And lo and behold, when I got to that meeting, there must have been over maybe 200 people, and you could count the white people on one, the fingers on one hand. So there were very few whites in this meeting.
Majority were black. And they told the mayor in no uncertain terms, you are out of touch with reality. We are living here, and the tariffs that you are imposing are unacceptable. The one lady spoke and she says, when people ask me how much I earn, and they hear I earn between 38 to 40,000 rand, and they think I'm earning a lot of money. She's saying out of that money I must pay for school fees, I must pay for a bond, I must pay for cars, I must buy food for my children, I have to pay for my medical aid. At the end of the day, there's very little left. Their stop orders are more than 20 grand a month.
100%. And then now you're coming with a high tariff increase from the municipality. So you think that because I stay in Hillcrest, I'm better off. She says, I would rather much go and stay in Chesterville or in Claremont, because there I don't have to pay for anything. So you, instead of encouraging us to improve our life, you actually want us to go backwards. And they gave it to him in no uncertain terms.
And what he said?
He was shocked. In fact, he started to talk about all the investment that he's bringing into the city. They actually didn't want to listen to him. In Zulu, they told him, you know what, close your mouth, sit down or leave this meeting. They didn't want to listen anymore to this mayor.
Well, obviously, we're just analyzing the role of politicians. They're being guided by the officials. The officials don't know what's happening. The ratepayer associations are saying get rid of them. There's a challenge in getting rid of them because they're unionized. So the very appointment of these guys is the problem. And they were political appointments. Now, I recall in the days of democracy when the ANC came into power, and at that stage there were a lot of, I'm not being racist in any event, but experienced non-African officials who were looking at the budget quite critically. And they were indicating clearly that we have to ensure that our rate adjustments and tariff adjustments are affordable. And then the politicians, through the working groups and pre-exco meetings, used to dissect the budget and say, can we cut this, can we cut that? Because ultimately they are representing the people that put them there that cannot afford any high tariffs. And those officials were then told, go back to the drawing board and start cutting further, even restructuring. And the intention was to help the poor that put them there. Now it is a question of you jammed with this bloated bureaucracy and you can't get rid of them. So the very same officials are saying, let's not touch salaries, wages and allowances. We can't interfere with that. And they're not prepared to analyze the rest of the expenditure and see where they can save. Because as you mentioned, a lot of these appointments of these service providers are linked to the politicians and it's imposed on them. So will there be really some kind of an adjustment to the budget based on the petition or the memorandum you all presented? Because you mentioned that the tariffs will be finalized next week, because come end of June, implementation is 1st July. They've got to give 1 month's notice. So in other words, before the end of May, the tariff has to be approved. And will those tariffs be brought to zero, or will they be minimal tariff adjustments? How do you foresee it as a leader of the eThekwini ratepayers movement together with the other organizations?
I think the amount of pressure that we put against the city and uniting all the different ratepayers associations and opposition political parties, I think that they would have they got no other choice. They are going to come with a very low tariff increase. That's my prediction. If they come with anything higher than 5%, I think they know for themselves that they would be in trouble. But coming back to these so-called middle managers and upper middle managers that have these positions, the Municipal Structures Act is clear. They are performance-based. So it's either you do your job, or you know how to do your job, or we get rid of you. The problem that we have at the moment is because the ANC has always been a majority in local government and in provincial and in national, they never imposed any of those measures in terms of holding those officials accountable. But the tide is turning. And what you will see now is, you would have seen in the press, MSCOPA, which is the watchdog to all of the shenanigans that takes place in local government. Previously, the position was held by an ANC person, and now the person that's sitting there as the chairperson on MSCOPA is not an ANC person, and all of a sudden there's questions being asked about eThekwini. Tell us about this, tell us about that, tell us about all of these things. And they were given a deadline. In fact, the mayor was not in eThekwini today. He was in Cape Town because they summoned him there. Give us answers on all of these things. So previously you were protected because it was your provincial government. You control provincial government and local government. So the people on province turned a blind eye when you did whatever you needed to do. But the tide is turning. They can't hide away from all of this. And to your comment where we're saying that a lot of the MK party are ex-ANC people and they're the ones who were kicked out. That may be true, but the people who are left in the ANC are none the better. If you allow them, they will still continue to do what they're doing. So we need a total change of the system. And all these mainstream political parties, they are the reason why we are where we are. On the one hand, you had the ANC who was looting, left, right, and center. On the other hand, the parties who were supposed to be watching them allowed them to continue. They didn't want to say anything. They were quiet. It's only of recent now that you will find that the DA are now brave enough to say things in public and question things. Previously, they never did that. It's only after ERPM started to openly comment and say, guys, what is going on with this? What is going on with this? And then very quickly they then go up and raise those questions in council. But previously you were scared to ask those questions. Now you're trying, because it's an election year, you are very happy to go and ask those questions. And then we are saying, but hold on, for the last 4 years and 5 years, where were you? I mean, you mentioned, hey, things are happening very quickly now. You report a pothole and it's getting done. And I told you, Brother Yunus, is because it's an election year. And that's why they're doing this. And then people will go and vote for them. And then for the next 4 years and 5 years, you won't see them. And we're back to square one.
Well, I remember, on the humorous side, when I was in the municipality and we did an on-site inspection in the Chatsworth area, and we had a whole lot of councillors that jumped into the bus, including Raj Bansi during that period. And one of the councillors, known as Reverend Cyril Pillay, we were driving past the Bayview area, and the Bayview councillor jumped on it. After 4 years, I'm seeing you first time jumping onto the bus. Where were you? So he had a big laugh about it. These guys suddenly wake up during election time because it's coming to elections. So this is the problem we've got even with our councillors in the different areas. There are problems, civil society phones, contact, like ORA or your Ratepay Association. When there's problems, the communities are contacting the Ratepay associations to lodge the complaint or log the complaint to have service delivery done, so that oversight that ratepayers have in their wards becomes crucial. But what we're going to do is take a break. I know we're going to get Samuel Kennedy on the line, and I want our finance economist to comment on the bloated bureaucracy which we talk about, and inshallah for the next half an hour we'll have further discussions on the matter.
We get that the first lessons about money are never just about money.
2, 3, 400.
And what do we do with it?
We save some and we give some.
That's my boy. They're about responsibility, generosity, principles, and banking that honors your values. Get an Islamic youth account for your children, plus discounted banking for your spouse with Ultimate Islamic Banking. Apply online. Your story matters. ABSA. T's and C's apply. ABSA is an authorized financial services and credit provider.
This Qurbani, make your sacrifice simple, seamless and fully compliant. Durban Halal Meats, located at 84 Felix Dlamini Road, offers complete Qurbani services for just 3,500 Rand. Your Qurbani is performed at a SANA-approved abattoir under strict HACCP and food safety standards, then professionally sliced, packed and labeled with an average live weight of 55 kilos and dress weight of 22 kilos. You're getting real value. Just want your Qurbani cut? We've got you. Book for only 250 Rand. Call 031-207-7869 or WhatsApp 082-797-6839. Durban Halal Meats. Trust, quality, convenience.
Welcome to Simplex Radio. Visit our showroom for the full range of car audio. Our TV department carries top brands with quality LED panels, full HD to Ultra HD, and now the experience of Super Ultra HD. Visit our theater rooms and transform your home with brands like Onkyo, Integra, Denon, Boston Acoustics, Yamaha, and more for quality audio visual experience. Now available, full range of home appliances. A one-stop shopping experience. Call 031-306-4029 or Kenilworth Park, 202 Brickville Road, Overport. Simplex Radio, the name you can trust.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. La ilaha illallah. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, walillahil hamd. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. La ilaha illallah. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, walillahil hamd. Allahu Akbar kabira, walhamdulillahi kathira, wa subhanallahi bukratan wa asila. تبارك الذي نزل الفرقان على عبده ليكون للعالمين نذيرا. يا رسول الله يا حبيب الله آقا 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 پھر کے گلی گلی ٹھوکر سب کی کھائے کیوں دل کو جو عقل دے خدا تیری گلی سے جائے کیوں رخصت کا فدا کا شان
غش سے ہمیں اٹھائے کیوں رخصت کے قافلہ کشار غش سے ہمیں اٹھائے کیوں سوتے ہیں ان کے سائے میں سوتے ہیں ان کے سائے میں کوئی ہمیں جگائے کیوں پھر کے گلی گلی تباہ آقا سب اکھائے کیوں دل کو جو عقل دے خدا تیری گلی سے جائے کیوں یاد حضور کی قسم غفلت عیش ہے ستم یاد حضور کی قسم غفلت عیش ہے ستم خوب ہے قید غم میں ہم خوب ہے قید غم میں ہم کوئی ہمیں چھڑائے کیوں پھر کے گلی گلی تباہ ہو کر سب دکھائے کیوں دل کو جو عقل دے خدا تیری گلی سے جائے کیوں وہ جو نہ تھے تو کچھ نہ تھا وہ جو نہ ہو تو کچھ نہ ہو وہ جو نہ تھے تو کچھ نہ تھا وہ جو نہ ہو تو کچھ نہ ہو جان ہے وہ جہان کی جان ہے وہ جہان کی جان ہے تو جہان ہے آقا آقا گلی
Listen to News in Focus on Radio Al-Ansar, Durban 90.4 and Petermarisburg 105.6 FM every Wednesday from 8 p.m. with YUNUS SACOOR. That's 8 p.m. every Wednesday, Radio Al-Ansar, keeping you informed.
فہرست اسیاں کو چھوڑ دے اللہ اللہ تو میری سن لے صدا حسبنا اللہ ونعم الوکیل حسبنا اللہ ونعم الوکیل حسبنا اللہ ونعم الوکیل نعم المولى ونعم النصير حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير حسبنا الله ونعم
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to News in Focus live on Radio Al-Ansar International, broadcasting on the frequency Durban 90.4 FM, Petermarisburg 105.6 FM and streaming on www.alansar.org.za. We were chatting with Asad Ghaffar where we unpacked the purpose of the protest march that he had together with various other organizations, and he gave us an indication exactly why his organization together with the others believe that there should be no tariff adjustments. Having said that, he commented on a bloated bureaucracy, change in leadership at the various municipalities, and more proactive councillors and politicians be appointed together with a restructuring of the bureaucracy. I've been mentioning that, the markets are beginning to fluctuate, the financial markets, as a result of the Iran-USA-Israel war, and Trump's Iran warning sends oil prices soaring and markets tumbling. So we know there are huge problems But before I ask our economist, asset manager Hassan Motala to comment on that aspect, Hassan is in the studio and has been listening to the situation in the various municipalities and the budget adjustments and the reason for those adjustments. Perhaps Hassan wants to comment. Hassan, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to News in Focus on this cold evening in KwaZulu-Natal, Durban, and the elation of the Arsenal fans in winning the Premier League, and what the fans are now saying that the Champions League is coming up in a week or two's time, and they're hoping they can win the double.
Yeah, so, you know what? For the first time, Arsenal fans I think they've got their voices, and it's no more, could have been, would have been, should have been. It actually has been. So they've actually for the first time in 22 years taken the Premiership.
So and they're now commenting that the other clubs must have their turn also, and they're having a go at Man U supporters to say, you guys now, more than a couple of decades, you all are battling also.
No, a couple of decades, but we're a decade now. I'd say a decade, or maybe a little more than a decade we've been out of it for the Premiership, but we'll get back.
And then they further commenting that, Mo Salah, you were correct. Liverpool are not playing that hard-pressed game anymore. You guys are has-beens and catch a wake-up call.
Yeah. I think Liverpool had a tough year, but let's see. I think hopefully they will qualify for the Champions League. So
you mean that last goal by Haaland saved them from embarrassment?
They were very lucky. I mean, fortunately, you're right. So City actually gave them a lucky draw on that.
Hassan, just quickly, you've heard what Holthausen said, what Assad is saying. Yeah. You mention always in your responses that there's a bloated municipality, and these were, guys that were cadre deployments. And we always question, will the municipalities restructure and will they get rid of these guys? Unions are saying ICONA. So you're stuck with this bureaucracy. Even if you get a new set of politicians, they cannot get rid of these, excess staff. And Assad was talking about retrenchment is possible in the private sector, but in the government sector, you hardly hear about this. So how do we fix this up?
You're right. The unfortunate thing is in public sector retrenchments it's an exceptionally difficult process. Yes, you do see it, the form of retrenchments, not retrenchments, but where you do see some cutting in terms of the workforce is where people are getting into retirement, or
giving them early retirement.
Getting early retirement.
And these are the guys that are experienced and the good guys.
That's unfortunately some of the more experienced and more skilled guys actually take the packages and move on, and still some of the duds obviously continue to remain. But what happens is, though, you find, for example, some people that are there and move on, they don't replace them. The problem with that is there's two. The positive is that yes, it reduces the cost base, but on the other hand is some of the skills that goes with those people is unfortunate. And where we're finding the biggest challenges is a lot of the hirees that have taken place in the last 10 years. That's where the challenges are, because of the cadre deployment and the pure focus on.
So you can't get rid of those guys.
Very hard to get rid of them.
And those are the lazy guys.
Unfortunately, that's it. So you see, in many of these contracts, which I think I'm not 100% sure because I haven't gone through an employment contract of a public sector employee, but performance analysis and performance assessments are key in terms of holding people accountable.
Now let me explain to you how that works, and I discussed this previously because I was in the system. It was introduced some years ago with a view to ensuring that people have KPIs, particularly top management, because they're responsible for service delivery in their sections. And these KPIs, unfortunately, they are determined by these officials. So they, for example, if they say that we're going to tar 50 roads for the year, now they know they should be tarring 100, they put 50 because it's quite achievable. But if they don't achieve that, they give good reasons and then they get bonuses. Now, in the municipality and government departments, you have an annual bonus which is in November, and that gets given to all employees, including these Section 36 employees as well. And then you have a performance bonus. And as long as you hit 3+ out of 5, they're going to give you that performance bonus, which is equivalent to the 13 check. So you have what we call a 14 check as well.
Yes.
So eventually these guys are scoring all the way to the bank.
Yes.
But the problem is that those officials that are not performing, by default, they've been given the green light that they performed. So nobody is independently measuring. Whereas more than 50% of them, they don't make the cut.
Yes.
So you need a change at the high level, and those guys are lazy themselves.
Yes.
So that cancer spreads from the top and it's not sorted out. Now I've got Samuel Kennedy on the line, and he's a political analyst, and he and I have been talking about this, that how are we going to put it right? Hassan, you just mentioned it's a difficult process. Unions are going to oppose it. I want Sam to come in and ask him, have you got a magic wand to correct this? Samuel, good evening and welcome to News in Focus.
Good morning or good evening, Yunus. Salam alaikum.
Salam. I thought you in that part of the world.
Good evening to all the listeners. How's it, Hassan?
How's it?
Sam, I thought you in that part of the world that it's in the morning now.
I'm still hanging. Got the Arsenal hangover.
Oh right, okay, fine. I know you're a Man U fan, but now you're backing Arsenal because they.
No. I'm an Arsenal. They're one of the guys that I don't like, unfortunately. For Man United, it's a hangover because Man finished them this year. So it's good they won, but at least it shows that Man were a better team.
Well, Man also defeated Liverpool twice, so obviously the key rivals, they had a go at them this year. And they said, never mind, you'll beat us 7-0 last year and the previous year, but we had our 3-2 and 2-1 victory, so we're the better side this year. And we're above you all.
Absolutely.
Well, listen, at the end of the day, the critics are saying that Arsenal will be strong enough to beat PSG, but as in condition they stopped the goal scoring prowess of PSG in the first half, so maybe they can defend depending on how long.
No, I think we, as Premier League supporters all over the world, it's not a question of whether you support United, Liverpool, or Arsenal or Man City. I think everybody would be punting for Arsenal, so we would do that as well.
Yeah. Anyway, Sam, I was talking to Hassan,
yes, sir.
And prior to that, I'm not sure whether you were catching a listen to Assad's response to the protest march this afternoon that they opposed any tariff adjustments, and they're looking at cost cutting, and you and I discussed this many times that bloated bureaucracy, it's a serious challenge to most municipalities to reduce, because the politicians put these people in there as their supporters and the need to employ them, and it's hard to get rid of them. Now, even if you have a change in government at the various municipalities, you're stuck with this stuff because unions will oppose any kind of retrenchments. Have you got a magic wand where this makes up more than 30% of the cost or the budget of the municipality, that to reduce these costs and start removing the lazy and staff that are not delivering? Is there any ideas you have in mind, Sam?
Thanks, Yunus. I think you come from that space. I've been in that space, and for anybody to wake up and assume. Because politics didn't start when a few organizations was formed. Politics we've had in this country, especially local government, from 1996. In order to restructure, whether it's a local municipality, provincial government, private sector, or national government, you have to use an instrument which is called the Section 189. And Section 189, you don't just go and retrench people because a few thousand people or a few hundred people are marching in the street. And Durban got in excess of 2 million voters, so you assume that a few hundred voters will determine the fate of a few million voters. It doesn't work that way. I think Assad is got the right ideas, and he's not a fool. I mean, he understands the local government space now, but it's not as easy as people think it is. Firstly, what happens is, in terms of Section 189, you have to follow what we call a consultative process, and one of the first things they look at is those close to retirement, natural attrition, in other words, people who leave generally on their own volition, and as a last resort, the instrument of retrenchment. So to put it in perspective and cut a long story short, it's not going to happen, Yunus. You know that, I know that. And the only thing that's going to change that is when people stop fracturing their vote. And we it's going to be worse if we go into a coalition, which is what's going to happen again. So the chances of that happening, I think, is we would be short-sighted to think that retrenchment is something that's going to happen. It's not going to happen.
So
and that's the sad reality.
Which means that bloated bureaucracy, we stuck with that cost.
Absolutely.
So
people need to vote wisely. We need to be very smart how we vote. The more the vote gets split, or the more the vote gets spread, the greater the chances of minimal change. That's all I can say. So the more people bring in, 2021 we had 27 minority seats out of 222, right? So just slightly over 10%. That's a big number. And I think this year it's going to be a bit more. And as long as that happens, Durban is going to continue on the slippery path of regression, and the big parties will dominate the scene again.
Now, Asad mentioned that ANC is holding more than 40% of the seats in eThekwini, which is one of the biggest metros in KZN, and Msunduzi as well. And based on the performance of MK in the provincial elections, that they're likely to hold the majority, but that does not mean they'll control the municipality, because you mentioned coalitions. But the leadership of the ANC is not agreeing to that kind of scenario. They are mentioning, and Mabuya Kulu, together with James Kumalo and others, when they had a recent conference, announced that that particular scenario may not prevail with local government elections, because they're looking per ward and they're doing their work. Others are saying the ANC has woken up too late, but there's about 6 months left to elections, so they're going to start accelerating their involvement with the different wards. But be that as it may, it'll be a toss-up, 2 or 3 big parties to control the eThekwini together with the coalitions. Now, Asad was mentioning that MK is basically a branch of ANC, because a lot of guys that left EFF and ANC joined MK. And during the provincial elections, there was obviously apathy on the part of supporters of the ANC, particularly led by Zuma, and they all voted blindly for MK. But now people are realizing, with the hiring and firing by Zuma of MK people, including Floyd and other guys, that the MK is not as strong as people expected them to be. So from your perspective, and the reason why I'm raising this is because we got municipal elections some 6 months away. We're discussing some critical issues about dealing with challenges on service delivery in the municipality, including unaffordable tariff adjustments. So it all boils down to the leadership come November this year. How do you see the situation in terms of what I'm saying? I know I said a bundle of things. From a political angle, how do you read it? Do you think MK will perform as well as they did provincially, or will the ANC have an improvement on their provincial results in local government? And other smaller parties will come in, and MK may not realize what they achieved in the provincial elections.
Thanks, Yunus. I think we need to look at, they say numbers, and Hassan is a financial guy, so he understands numbers. Numbers don't lie. Numbers never lie. So let's rephrase the dynamics of the eThekwini demographic. eThekwini demographic. right? Close to 80%, so about 78%, maybe slightly less. Sorry, my apologies, 68%. So 68% of the eThekwini municipality, minimum, are black, right? And that is where the concentration of the following parties exist: the MK, the ANC, the EFF, the IFP, by and large. And then up to 20% or thereabouts of Indian origin. And in that mix, most of them are apathetic and most of them don't vote. It's been like this since 96. Statistics don't lie. So what do you have? And then obviously you got the white population, which is primarily the Democratic Alliance. Freedom Front Plus got 1 seat in 2021, and they'll have 100% growth, and they'll probably go to 2 seats. I don't see them more than that. And then you've got in the Indian community this huge array of where everybody's fishing, which is Minority Front. You got Assad's party. You got Al Jamaa, you got Truly Alliance, you got, I forget my colleague, what's his name, Imtiaz. So you got all these multiplicity. Then you got another one that's just come on the scene now, which is 1860, and so it goes. And so the bulk of the voters are African. And they determine the direction of the city, the budget, whether there'll be more people employed through EPWC. They determine, for example, whether any SIU reports get buried, whether that one report, YUNUS, you know very well about, I just forget the name, that was against the Indian population or the Indian grouping in council. What was that one? That came out in the 90s, I think it was. What was it? Manana. What is it? Not Manana?
Manasseh report.
Manasseh report. So, and that was a live, genuine expose that was never presented. Now you got the SIU report, which I was reading today, where the president said the SIU report was sent to eThekwini municipality, and that also has been buried. So what does it say? It say, and let me say lastly, and the bulk of the majority are non-rate payers, because generally townships are not subjected to rates. Apart from levies, which is through electricity, etc., etc., etc. So what do you have in eThekwini? You have a non-economic functional system that doesn't favor those who are contributors of rates. Right? Now you can march till you're blue in the face. You can go take eThekwini to court, which I think Assad, as you know, I mean, we were once in that meeting where we warned them that they will lose the case, which they did. You got to be realistic with eThekwini in terms of the dynamics.
So
and it's going to come down to whether you are aligned.
Now, what you're telling us is that you're going to have the same setup even when elections are over, that there'll be a shift between these 3 or 4 big parties in control. That's what you're telling us.
100%. It's not going to change.
So basically,
and I'll put my head in the noose for that. It'll never change. You know, people say, this guy. In the last 5 years, Yunus, you and I have been on prediction 101% out of 100.
So now what we're going to have to work out is, and our listeners are listening to us, and service delivery is still a challenge. The employees, they are not doing their work. The politicians are still, corrupt. The officials are joining them in a corruption case. Ramaphosa has indicated through the NC's renewal policy that he's going to start re-looking at the way municipalities deliver services, and they're going to keep a closer eye. The ANC has now realized, as the ruling party in government, that for us to survive, we're going to have to deal with corruption, maladministration, lack of service delivery, dealing with lazy officials, consequential management. But what you are now arguing, Sam, and others are arguing, that you won't be able to deal with the scourge because the willing power to do it from the politicians is not there. For example, you mentioned the various forensic reports that came out. Manasi, perhaps I was there during that period. I think that was targeting certain race groupings because Mike Sutcliffe was there together with all his DCMs and he brought them in. And politically there was a problem because obviously he was cracking the whip on people not delivering, and then the politicians felt, we want to get rid of him first together with his cronies, and there was no substantial evidence against them because that report was sent to the experts and they said you don't have any case against these officials, and those that you got evidence that you can criminally charge them, it was few and far between, and that report was done by a political appointment. Manasi was an auditor linked to certain politicians, and she was asked to put what those politicians wanted. So I was there during that space, and I don't think it was possible to implement that report because incoming city manager Spusi Tole wanted to attack all those officials, and he took that report to the senior forensic guys, and they said there's no substance in this report because it was prepared by an inexperienced CA. So that's my understanding of that particular report. A lot of people were asking the question, and they can research it because if you don't have adequate evidence, you can't implement. Zondo Commission report, people are being criminally charged, and Ramaphosa is clearly stating that there's enough evidence to prosecute, and those prosecutions are taking place. And now with this Madlanga Commission, there is a lot of evidence available for apprehending those that were responsible. So the point I'm making is Ramaphosa serious about dealing with the scourge, or is his hands tied? Sam?
Well, Ramaphosa's got his own skeletons, and the number one skeleton is Pala Pala.
Really?
I just read an article now, again today, which says the Speaker has declined the motion raised by the ATM in Parliament. So South African politics, with no disrespect, is fraught. Fraught meaning in Afrikaans is rotten. The only option we have is we have to unite as minorities. I don't mean unite against the African, which becomes discriminatory, but I mean unite to ensure that the voice that we present to government has an echo and is able to resonate in the corridors of City Hall. Yunus, you know that space. I know that space. I've been there.
Yeah, it is a
People
problem.
think it's as simple as getting a little hall with a few hundred people or marching and making noise. Like Johannesburg, which we've seen, or we can still see, like Ekurhuleni, like Tshwane. The unfortunate situation is we have to be realistic and be pragmatists. We don't have the power, numbers-wise, to change. The only thing we can pray and hope and trust is that the big block changes and that vote.
I think we lost Sam Kennedy. I'm not sure whether his line is unclear.
I'm here.
Oh, you're there. Go ahead, Sam.
I'm here.
Yes, you can go ahead,
Can you
Sam.
hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you. You can go ahead, Sam.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is we gotta trust the Almighty that that our influence, that big power block of 70% or thereabouts, is split to enable better governance. Because as long as one party has too much power, nothing will change. As long as the vote is split like it's split in Parliament at the moment, much more will happen.
So you're
But
saying
if we become too split,
yes, but you're saying
where we end up having 27 parties controlling a split vote na easy bought, that's where our problem is.
But listen, if you read the recent response to the Pala Pala issue, where an activist wrote and put the situation in perspective from Ramaphosa's angle, where he mentioned that you got to hear his side of the story, and this particular activist put the likely scenario. He says Ramaphosa is a billionaire in his own right, and he likes a certain brand of cattle, and he had it in this farm of his, and obviously there were some guys from Africa that were interested, and they paid the money. So he can afford the taxes, and obviously Fraser during that time was a pro-Zuma alliance or sort of linked, and he exaggerated this whole situation. So let Ramaphosa have his day in court, and let the impeachment committee have a look at issues, and let the voting structure takes place. He is not stopping that process, and time will indicate which way the country will go. But in terms of, unfairly attacking him on one, and Zuma has various other issues and not yet prosecuted, the criminal justice system is taking years to deal with his matter, and other politicians having years and years, like for example Zandile Gumede case is taking 4 or 5 years. Zuma's various cases are taking more than a decade. So what the public is saying is give Ramaphosa a chance to defend himself, and then the truth will prevail. But you cannot just find the man guilty based on hearsay. So that's an argument for another day. But in terms of the municipal elections that are coming up, we will be having discussions with the different political parties. But what you alluding to, Sam, is that you may have these big parties ruling at eThekwini either through a coalition of sorts, but there will be some kind of control and assurance that service delivery must improve and maladministration must be minimized. We're not saying it'll be removed altogether, because Zuma is the first to talk on behalf of MK, but he's hiring and firing people all the time, and the Nkandla court case hasn't been sorted out, and yet there was hundreds of millions of wasted expenditure there. But Sam, I just want to bring in Hassan, because we're running out of time. We've got a few minutes left, another about 5 or so minutes. Hassan, local politics is indicating that affordability is a problem in terms of municipal charges, because what Hassan is saying, or Assad is saying, that an individual earning 35 or 40 grand a month cannot come out because his bill is sitting at like about 12 and 15 grand a month average, and this is because of increased costs. Sam, you are listening there. I want Hassan to come in now. That if municipal costs are going to become unaffordable, because electricity, water people need is a basic right in terms of the human rights report. So if people cannot get that at affordable cost, then other costs adding up, life becomes unaffordable even for the middle class. Hassan?
100%. I mean, the obviously the everybody's impacted by the increases, but the middle income grouping in particular is being impacted significantly. To put it into perspective, if you look at utility costs over the last 10 years, electricity, water, sanitation, they've gone up anywhere between, in the last 10 years, anywhere between 150 to 500%, depending on which utility you're looking at, whether it's electricity, water, or sanitation. It's gone up disproportionately over a relatively short period of time. It's impacting everyone. Now, on top of that, eThekwini this year relative to all municipalities and metros in the country, is pushing through or wants to push through the highest proposed increases. It's ridiculous. They're completely out of touch in terms of what the reality is on the ground for across the board, be it the lower income, but also, very importantly, the base which pays a substantial amount, which is your middle income. They're being impacted significantly by this. Now, to ask for, you look at it, 10.5% electricity, they're talking about 15% water increase, 13% sanitation. It's madness. Inflation numbers came out today. 4%, the highest we've had in 20 months. 4%, but remember, that's a broad number. And has mainly been impacted by the petrol and diesel increases that we've seen this past month. It's going to increase further next month. So this is for April. May, because we've had now again this month we've had a big increase in terms of petrol. We haven't still had the related impact in terms of food costs. This is still just the initial parts where it hits you in the transport and certain other areas. But the related impact of this coming through on food costs will come through in coming months. So this 4% could move up to 6% in the next couple of months. It impacts across the board the consumer quite significantly. Now, if municipalities want to really push through this 10 to 15%, think the impact that will have during the second half of the year with food increasing, transport already at high, and now you're getting your utility bill also moving up substantially. It really puts people under tremendous pressure.
Now, Hassan, I want to stop you there and compare realistically, and our listeners are listening, food costs, bread, milk, the basic stuff, cooking oil, cake flour, vegetables, versus the increases that you're talking about. Relative to that, farmers and manufacturers of food commodities have kept their prices affordable. Sure. For example, if you look at a pocket of potatoes, it's about $70, and previously it was $120, $130. So farmers are coming to the party and making the cost affordable. If you look at the price of bread, averaging between 16 and $18, and the cheaper bread is 12, 11 rand. So they're keeping those basic, commodities affordable, but the costs that are increasing are other costs. Petrol is going up, electricity and water, and that bill for a middle income guy is extremely high. Now, you take the insurance, if those that got insurance cover and medical aid, that takes 1/3 of the chunk of your salary. The taxman is taking another 20-30%. Correct. So people are left with very little disposable income. Yes. So affordability becomes a crisis on the other side rather than on the food side.
Food at this point in time. So we've been fortunate that over the past year, 18 months, key commodities such as maize and wheat, after the Russian-Ukraine war, they actually came off and they were relatively stable. So therefore, those things feed into areas such as your bread and certain meat products like chicken. But beef prices had moved up because of obviously the foot and mouth disease. There was a big increase in terms of red meat, particularly beef, over the past year. So that increased quite substantial. But you're right, other areas amongst the fruit and vegetables, when we have good rains and you have good weather and the like, you do have a relatively more stable...
And huge compliments to our farmers.
And the farmers have been pretty good in terms of that. But diesel is a reasonably decent input cost in farming. Therefore, moving into the second half of this year, come July, August, September onwards, with the increase that we've seen in terms of fuel, unless fuel prices really come off in the coming months, which at this point in time it's still it's a low probability.
You see, Hassan,
on what
those that go to the supermarkets and they buy this stuff, okay, your trolley cost is much higher because depending on what you buy. But if you look at the fresh produce and not too expensive items, the basic items like potatoes and onions. Onions have gone up quite a bit now, and sweet potatoes and other things, cake flour, those type of things. they're not as extravagantly high as a municipal bill, 15 and 16%. 100%. Now, we're looking at, basic human needs. And these are basic human needs which people want affordable costs. And this is why government has to come to the party to either subsidize or reduce costs, because that bloated bureaucracy and this additional cost coming as a result of management corruption is crippling the municipalities.
The municipalities can't be managed effectively. So there's no need for subsidies. There's actually, within the municipality, it's an overpaid, it's hugely, the budget is substantial for them to manage it very effectively and efficiently. Get the right skills, get the right number of people in there, and budget accordingly. There's a lot more of the budget that can be used towards the infrastructure spending, improving the systems and improving the areas, whether it's water-related infrastructure, sanitation infrastructure. There is within the budget we can use it. But unfortunately, the allocation of the budget is disproportionate in terms of what they're allocating to. Secondly, cut the unauthorized and excessive expenditure that's been a huge hindrance and a big issue over the last decade. Cut it out. That means corruption and maladministration. Cut a lot. You will save billions also in that. Again, you save that, you utilize that more effectively. So I think there's no need for subsidies. It's getting the right people, getting the right systems, ensuring that we're cutting away in terms of maladministration and corruption, and getting more efficiencies coming through and you will see the benefit and the impact coming through, and there will be no need then to pushing through 10 and 15% increases. Increases of close to inflation, 3-4%, will be more palatable and they can, again, you're seeing certain municipalities or they're wanting to put, even you've seen it in certain government departments, and Treasury is now trying to put some pressure in some of them, is where they're just deciding to do 2 and 3 year wage agreements of like 7% and 8%. You can't do that. You cannot. Where inflation targeting of the central bank is to keep inflation at 3%, how can you set especially with departments that are not very efficient, to set them at 7 and 8% over 2 and 3 years? You cannot do that.
Sam, I want to bring you in now. You recall in the 70s or early 80s, councillors were not getting paid much, neither were MPs and government politicians, and municipal officials were not paid salaries that are equivalent to the corporate sector. Now, that particular aspect has gone up significantly and it's impacting on costs. Do you recall, Sam, during that period where councillors used to get an allowance rather than the 30K a month they're getting now? And MPs were not getting, like these, past $1 million annual salaries. So that increase in costs, exacerbated by the bloated bureaucracy, has caused considerable strain to the ratepayer and the taxpayer. Sam?
Thanks, Yunus. We used to have boroughs, meaning it was more what we call devoluted power. In other words, boroughs were small.
It was local affairs committees.
Had a borough, Mhlanga had a borough.
Yeah, no, those were the separate municipalities, but you had, a racist regime. But what point I'm making is that whether they were councillors, whether they were MPs, the rates of salaries were less than 10% of what people are being paid now, which has resulted in a significant increase in costs. Because those councillors were there voluntarily and they just had the cost to recover their expenses and a small allowance. Now councillors are earning huge salaries with pension benefits and medical aid benefits, etc. And that has increased the expenditure in most government departments and municipalities by a significant amount. And the resultant effect is that the service delivery is required from hospitals and, security services and other services in government and municipal services. It's burdened on the ratepayer and the taxpayer.
The long and short of it is, I listened to Jordan Hill-Lewis
the mayor of
make a submission on Ria Vaya Go Durban all the various, what they call as bus rapid transport system, BRT. Yeah, just so that listeners know, that's now being removed by National Treasury. In Durban, they've spent hundreds of billions. It's not even working. So if it's now going to be removed, where's that money going to come to fulfill those aspirations? Because they're primarily in the black townships. That's going to come from the budget. They're no longer going to get a government grant because that's now being removed. So they're going to have to find those hundreds of millions in order to ensure that particular system works. So the point I'm making is you're going to have on the one hand the people who are going to look at trimming, a reduction of costs, balancing of budgets, analyzing exorbitant spend, looking at Section 36 UNUS, which you know very well, making sure that unauthorized expenditure is reduced. All those factors are political. And the only way they're going to be resolved is what you're going to have on one hand, you're going to have an MK-led alliance, and on the other hand, you're going to have a Democratic ANC alliance, IFP. And that is the reality. And ordinary citizens are going to have to choose either that on the left or that on the right. And if they choose all the others, well, we can't complain because your vote is going to determine the direction of eThekwini municipality and Pietermaritzburg. And it's as simple as that.
Sam,
all those who are going to come in at 0.5%, 0.2%, all the 0. somethings percent or the 1% or the 2 seats and the 1 seats. That's the reality. I'm not knocking them. I'm just saying that's democracy. Democracy means people have the right to choose who they like. But the real reality is you're going to end up with one alliance on the one end, which is what we call the progressive left, and you're going to have the one alliance on the other side, which is currently what we have in the GNU. And that's the reality.
That's a good call, Sam. We'll debate that further in future programs. I want to thank you for joining us, Sam. We're running out of time. It's already 10:22. We're 20 minutes over the time. So I thank you for joining us.
Thank you,
all our guests for joining us. Anthony Walthausen, Msunduzi, Resident Civics. Asad Ghaffar, Chairman of ERPM. We wish him everything of the best with his Porous Party movement. Hassan Mutala, as usual, Economist, Asset Manager. And you, Samuel, I think, for joining us and saying it as it should be said. We will be having a debate on these various issues because local government elections are around the corner and we're looking at other realities. We pray and hope that, people realize that they're there for the benefit of the communities out there. And the situation of poverty is becoming progressively worse. Our people are getting unemployed. And our Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said that the best amongst us are those that care for others and those that have the best character. So we pray and hope, Sam, as you mentioned, that our leaders care for their communities and do not emerge during election time, promise the world and deliver nothing. And that applies to our officials working in the various departments, and including those in the private sector that are exploiting our public. On that note, it brings us to closure for News in Focus for this evening. As I mentioned in the introduction of this program, that we are in the Mubarak month of Zilhajj, and Prophet ﷺ said that these 10 days, are not comparable to any other period of the year that are so auspicious in the eyes of Almighty Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. And we should use this opportunity to make du'as that the poverty and the difficulties that the ummah and the community is facing, Almighty assists our community to overcome these difficulties, particularly the challenges that are taking place in the Middle East, where Donald Trump and his cronies are creating havoc to innocent people there. And as our Pep Guardiola said, the coach and the manager of Man City, that think about human lives and human beings. Don't think about the wealth that you can gain out of the oil fields. So It's a month we have to make du'as for our community, and I always say that Almighty is in control. Sam, Almighty is in control. He can control the entire world, deal with issues, but in condition that mankind obeys the commandments as indicated by Almighty and our various religious leaders, including our Prophet Muhammad, and peace be upon him, together with the other prophets, that we have to ensure that we comply with the requirements of the Quran and be practical. On that note, we terminate today's program. Next Wednesday there will be a live program by Mufti AK, and we will then have a News in Focus a week thereafter. Eid al-Adha will take place next Thursday, and I want to take this opportunity of wishing all our listeners Eid al-Adha Mubarak. Do make lots of du'as between now and Eid al-Adha, because du'as are accepted, and the advices of our ulama ikram is that keep up with our 5-time salah with Jamaat, women folk at home, make a lot of tilawat al-Quran, zikrullah, and various other amals that our ulama have advised, and spend some time turning to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, asking for the help and intervention to alleviate all the difficulties and challenges that our human beings are facing worldwide. On that note, until we meet again the following Wednesday, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allah.